Welcome to Honeybee Watch Symposia series. This is the first public online event that we've done, and I can tell already that it's going to be a great success because 135 of you have signed up, and we have already 70 people who have signed in. I'm Steve Rogenstein. I'm your host, the behind-the-scenes producer, and also the project director of Honeybee Watch. And I'm joined here today by Rodrigo Moro, who is our science director. And today we're going to introduce you to Honeybee Watch, give a brief introduction, and then we're going to hear from 4 honeybee research pioneers. So today we're going to tackle protocols, specifically monitoring. And it's especially important when you're dealing with free living nests. So imagine that you know where bees are living in a tree or in the side of your building or in a chimney. You have registered for Honeybee Watch, you've entered them in the site, you've uploaded photos, you've answered our preliminary questions, we validated it, published it, and then what? Up until now, not much has happened. However, we hope that that's going to change very soon. As we'll hear from our guests, this next stage after locating hives and colonies is to monitor them, to physically visit them and record certain data points. There are basic questions such as, is the nest still, is it active? Do you see pollen going in? Can you visit it at least 3 times a year? And beyond that, there are countless other data points, all of which are worthy of attention and some of which we'll discuss today. But when you're managing a citizen science research project, you have to balance between what you desire as a researcher and what's realistic to actually get and demand of or request of the people who are participating. So there's that fine balance, and it can be tricky. So I could go on and on and on, but we're really here to hear from our guests. So we have guests from Serbia, Ireland, the UK, and the US. Each of them will get 10 minutes, which is not a lot of time, to talk about their projects and to talk about monitoring. And now I'm going to introduce our guests. We started in the city, and now we're going to go to Ireland with Grace McCormack, who is straddling cities, towns, and all over Ireland. So to introduce, Grace is one of the core team members of Honeybee Watch and leads the Wild Honeybee Study and Outside the Box at the University of Galway's Honeybee Research Centre in Ireland, where Rodrigo, Keith, Alex, and others are on the team. And for the last 7 years, they've been finding free-living bees throughout Ireland with more than something like 500 sites so far. Her team is now monitoring and sampling with a focus of Apis mellifera mellifera, the black bee, which some had falsely claimed had gone extinct. So, Grace, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
10 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for that great talk, Jovana, as well. It's great to hear from the different projects and the different focus. So mine's quite broad in comparison and similar issues. Yeah, so thanks, Steve. It's great to be here today, and it's great to see such a good crowd. So I'm actually going to focus it on some current funding. We have a current project which is focused on the diversity and adaptation of wild honeybees in Ireland, but I'm going to focus it on the work package related to monitoring today. So my student has called this Outside the Box, which I thought was kind of a nifty title, and another student designed that logo for us. So collaborative work, a lot of people have brought us to where we are today, and new collaborators coming on board all the time. So it just has to be here in terms of funding, and because we would never be here without the beekeepers and members of the public actually that have really generated all this data and helped us continue. Yeah, so we're focused on Apis mellifera mellifera, which is the subspecies of the honeybee which is native to Ireland. And what got me interested, again, I'm not working on honeybees for very long. I'm an evolutionary biologist. I'm interested in molecular systematics, which is really relationships between organisms using DNA. And I was brought into this by beekeepers who wanted scientific evidence for questions that they had. And I was surprised at how little actually had been done at the time. So at the time when I got involved, the background was that, the figure A here on the left shows the original natural distribution of Apis mellifera mellifera, which is the pioneering subspecies of Rutner, and really a huge distributional range. and habitat types. But it has been decimated in recent years through a whole range of problems. And it was thought to be, as Steve said, really decimated in Ireland and assumed to be extinct. It was assumed that we had a lot of hybridized bees. And it was clearly from the introduction of VROA in 1998 that really our wild bees also went extinct. And this was the view of beekeepers, members of the public, conservationists, biologists, entomologists in the country. But I was getting reports, as in Ireland, people talk to each other, and as soon as people realized I was working on bees, I started getting reports from beekeepers who were finding bees in different places. So we started to look at that. So the first question, we showed that in 2018 that Ireland had a significant population of Apis mellifera right across the country. So we now are a really good stronghold for this subspecies. And in 2020, we published a short pilot study showing that bees do live in free living conditions in Ireland, and a high proportion of them are Apis mellifera. So the background to this was, again, at the start, when I started, people thought that they didn't really exist. Certainly they were decimated. So the population of wild living honeybees or free living honeybees was kind of rare to find one. And so my student Keith, who's at the time, we wrote an article for the Irish Times, which is a national newspaper, and looking for evidence of bees in Ireland. And we were actually overwhelmed by the response. We got over 200 responses within that week when the paper came out. We couldn't even follow them up, but it gave us a really good start and formed the basis of that paper. Like Jovana said, monitoring is really difficult, and we had obviously reports across the country. So it was no way ideal. It was an exploratory study, but it provided an excellent start. So then, because of the way we handled that data very badly, we went on holiday the week that they finally published that article, and our phone message box was full, our emails and everything. We found it difficult. So we decided to pair up with the National Biodiversity Data Centre so that it would be independent of us to record evidence of wild honeybees in the country, and so that beekeeper organisations or conservation groups could actually take over the running of the site if something happened to us and our lab wasn't doing it anymore. So they have been coming in regularly since 2019, but people forget about it at times, so it needs kind of regular reminding. But we have been getting reports in all over the country, and as Stephen said, we don't have exact locations so that the colonies are protected. There is a monitoring element to this reporting tool on National Biodiversity Data Centre, but it had to be designed for their system, not for what it was, and it was very awkward for our custodians to use. So I got funding, amazingly, from Science Foundation Ireland to run a project from 22 to 2025, focused on dramatically increasing the amount of knowledge we have on free living honeybees in Ireland. So we have 3 work packages to this. One is increasing and monitoring the reporting of free living colonies, and to build a citizen science project to look at survival and fitness of wild honeybees. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about today. And then work packages 2 and 3 are actually further studies of those in terms of adaptation, fitness, and then population genetics and patterns of the genetics and gene flow in Ireland. So our citizen science campaign, which Arrigo here is leading, so he's funded on this project, and Alex, who you've met as well, is doing her PhD in this project. So it's to promote the synergy between our new Galway Honeybee Research Centre, so we have a new website, and citizen scientists to foster protection of local wild honeybees. So we have a core group of original people who reported honeybees from 2016-17 that are still reporting it, and we're building that community every month or every week. So basically we have 2 main elements. One is the reporting, and that's still largely through the National Biodiversity Data Centre. The idea is then we validate those reports, and then we recruit people who report, who are willing to become what we call custodians, and they are given a monitoring ID for their colony, and they then join our monitoring team on our Galway Honeybee Research Centre website. So our reporting information that we look for is here. It's not very clear. We do get the spatial reference, the location, town, land, county. and contact details. And we look at the location, height from the ground, confirmed age of occupancy or estimated age of occupancy. Levels of aggression are important because we have issues with building hybridization due to imports of honeybees. So we do kind of record that. Colony status and pictures if we can, and whether beekeeper has been monitoring that and collecting swarms from it. Thankfully, with the team I have now, they have built our website to allow people from outside of Ireland to make records through our system as well, because the National Biodiversity Data Centre was just for the Republic of Ireland. So our colleagues in the north weren't able to report our colonies, but now they can. So at Brown Keats PhD, we had 108 nests that we documented and validated and monitored from that first project. We're now up to 452 validated nests across the country. So you see, we're based in Galway on the west coast, and we have colonies right across the country. There are gaps, so a lot of them are clustered around urban centres, which makes it easier for people. And we have 265 of those colonies sampled so far. So monitoring for us is this repeated collection of observations on our wild honeybee nests. So, you know, I guess there's still a lot of skepticism about, you know, what's in these colonies. So the assumption by many people is that these wild colonies are actually just escapes. They're not really wild living. They're escapes from local apiaries, and they die out in the winter and they get replaced. So the other assumption is, we could assume, if we don't do this right, that the colony of bees in that nest site is surviving. So is it the nest site or is it the colony? And how long is the colony actually surviving for? So if we don't sample or monitor enough, we won't determine whether it's the same lineage that's surviving in that nest site. Has that lineage died out and been replaced by something else? So monitoring allows us to track and follow whether something has survived or not. So it'll allow us to capture that something has died out and be replaced by something else. So it looks at survival and population dynamics. And this data validation is fundamental for building a reliable scientific study, because we really have to prove, I think, to the skeptics out there that these bees are actually surviving, and they're surviving. Probably the most important thing is that they're surviving beyond the time at which Varroa, decimation by Varroa would be expected.
Grace,
So
you have a minute.
Okay, nearly done. So again, fairly simple, because we found that beekeepers and people, you know, if we ask them for too much, we won't get anything. So we have a mobile friendly monitoring service now they can do on their phones. We monitor 4 times a year, and we look again, do you observe bee traffic at an entrance? Do you see how are they behaving? Do they appear to be black? Do you see new entrances? Are they bringing in pollen? And we leave some extra space. So we monitor after winter and then before swarming, because spring in Ireland can be very, very difficult for the bees, so they can come through the winter okay, but not survive our spring. So we want to monitor before swarming, then after swarming, and then before winter. And our plan is, we've already had one Zoom meeting with our custodians. The plan is to build this citizen science community so that we actually give them results back. So it's not just them reporting into us all of the time. As Jovana said, this communication and building a relationship with the custodians is really important to us as well, because it is truly working together that gets us where we want to go, to give us information that will be useful for people and beekeepers. So we do include other data. So we do genotype as well at multiple time points to try and prove that the lineage is the same, or what proportion of the lineages are the same and which proportions are different. And we also hope to look at some diseases, but as Jovana said, it's really difficult to sample brood. That's it. Hope I'm roughly in time, and I look forward to the conversation later. Cheers.
Thank you, Grace. Really interesting how parallel your projects are, the studies, and yet there's so many differences.